Thank you so much for coming. My name is Chris Hay. I'm the Assistant Superintendent and Human Resources Director for the Souderton Area School District. So welcome to our lovely high school. If you haven't been here before, it's a facility we're very proud of. The reason I'm introducing the evening is because I'm also the president of the Indian Valley Character Counts Coalition. The coalition's been working in this community for the last over 20 years now to build character in the community, but we really now do prevention work. So our work is focused on preventing youth from engaging in drug and alcohol abuse. Specifically, we're working right now on alcohol abuse, also drug abuse, and also mental health are some of our key topics right now that we're working on. So tonight you're going to hear a lot from the drug abuse, I always get it wrong. Terrible at it. Drug Addiction Resource Alliance, who is our presenting folks tonight. And I'm going to introduce some of them. Before I do that, there are a couple other public servants in the room that I'd like to mention. We do have Representative Steve Malagari here, who's our local representative to the Pennsylvania legislature. We also have Courtney Barbieri, who's a local school board member. So we appreciate them being here tonight. We also, our other public servants are judges and law enforcement officers across the county. So I'm next going to introduce Greg Gifford. Greg is a local attorney. He's also the president of the Montgomery County Bar Association, and he was a founding member of D.A.R.A. So Greg's going to kick it off, and we'll take our presentation from there. Thank you.
Just so everybody knows, I'm actually the commercial before we get to the main event. And having Judge O'Neill here, one of the preeminent people involved with trying to save people from drug addiction, again, I'm just the commercial. Some thank yous I want to make sure I give to the group. Thank you very much to the Indian Valley Character Counts Coalition for the collaboration this evening. It's very important to have these type events at many places and to try and impact as many people as we can, because even if one person leaves here tonight with a piece of information that saves a life, then it was worth putting this on tonight. We have so many volunteers who were very helpful in tonight's success, and hopefully I didn't forget anyone, but I'd like to thank Scott Rowland, who's our videographer, Gina Myers, our incredible photographer, Roger Hammond, our website expert, at www.darasaveslives.com. We're constantly making comprehensive updates to the site, trying to drive as much traffic to the site as possible so that if someone's out there in an emergency situation trying to find help, they can hopefully hit on darasaveslives.com and get the information they need to hopefully save a loved ones from the unbearable things that happen through to opioid addictions and overdoses. I would like to thank, of course, you always have to thank Wegmans and Danielle Turnoni, because they bring so many great foods and a lot of healthy foods tonight too. They pointed that out to me, that they brought healthy foods. So thanks to Wegmans for their wonderful contribution of food and drink. So make sure you grab something on the way out if you haven't already. We'd like to thank Kaleo for the naloxone. Just so you know, having this Narcan distributed in past events has been used, some of the doses, and has saved lives. So even if we go back to the day one when D.A.R.A. was started, and fast forward, if nothing else happens, the simple fact that some of these doses saved people's lives and they're still here today is a good thing. Always we have to thank Amy Gilran of A&G Southern Creations. She produces our signs at her cost. She helps with the D.A.R.A. t-shirts and other printing, and she never says no to Judge Duffy. And it's greatly appreciated. If you get a chance, please like and share our Facebook page, Drug Addiction Resource Alliance, and thanks to Mark Resniacki for his assistance. We're always posting updates and adding information, so go to the Facebook page, like it. It really helps drive traffic again. We also have Instagram and Twitter, thanks to Greg Gilrain, and Greg's also in charge with our sign placement in our community. So if you're on Instagram and Twitter, you can always access information there as well. We're always looking for volunteers to help with signs, publicity, manning the D.A.R.A tables at community events where we try and get the word out, and much more. We want to reach out in every place possible, places of worship, civics groups, business groups, any place you think that people gather, we want to reach out to and try and spread the information that there are people out there who want to help people save lives. Our email address is darasaveslives@gmail.com. Please email us if you want to become a member, offer any services in any way, post a sign, or just want to speak to us about something or great idea you have. So again, that's darasaveslives@gmail.com. Easy to remember. It's Gmail and it's Dara Saves Lives. Send an email with any thoughts or ideas that you come up with. Middle of the night, you wake up, you have a great idea, pop on the computer, send us an email. We have clipboards outside at the D.A.R.A table. Feel free to put any information there so we can contact you about future forums. If you change an email, even if you've already put your name there, if anything's changed, an address, a telephone number, an email, fill it out again so we make sure we have your most current information. And again, if there's any ideas you have, please reach out to us because we're always looking to improve and make this a great program in our community. Next, I'd like to introduce you to our founding person. Judge Duffy, in the very beginning, got together, brought in the two police lieutenants in the two townships in which she's a magisterial district judge, talked me into coming because she said, I want someone else there to help set this up, and I could never say no to trying to help people, especially with drug addiction. And that's how D.A.R.A started. But this was all the brainchild of Judge Duffy. So with that being said, Judge Duffy.
I want to thank you all for coming. I'm so excited to be expanding D.A.R.A. We all are. We've been to Lansdale. Our next forum is back in Lansdale at Trinity Lutheran Church on November 19th. We also are going to community college in the spring. So we're looking forward to that. And these types of forums, this is how we destroy addiction as a community, because as a community, we can understand the true nature of addiction. We can support our neighbors who are suffering from this awful epidemic. And of course, we can eradicate the stigma that often prevents people from getting the help that we need. So as Greg said, in 2016, I was noticing not only that people weren't showing up for court who were charged with misdemeanor drug possession cases, but we were also noticing that when they did, we weren't able to help them get into treatment. It was so frustrating. The obstacles were huge. We had transportation issues, we had insurance issues, we had bed availability, and the need to complete assessments. So I realized that I couldn't handle this on my own. We assembled a great team, and they're still with me today. I'm so thankful, especially Hope Stein. She's the best. Let's give her an applause, please. Hope is aptly named, as I always say, because she is the angel that I call whenever in the day I need someone, and sometimes that's not the day, sometimes that's the night. So she is a true blessing to me and to D.A.R.A. Also, I want to mention that we are only able to do this with all of these volunteers and all of the assistance that we have. I did want to take a brief moment to talk about a little bit about how we're trying to make a difference in the community. And I'm very thankful to all of the different groups who have invited me to be a part of their 12-step program, to the grief support, to the parent support. Many of you are here today, and I thank you for inviting me. I do tour facilities. I really want to have a better understanding of what an addict goes through, so that I can better support them, so that I can better understand them, and I can better relate to them in court. And while we don't have exact numbers, we're pretty sure that to this date, we have probably gotten 400 people into treatment from my court. It's a very proud statistic. So we are succeeding. Unfortunately, and I'm sure Judge O'Neill can talk about this a little bit more, we are seeing an increase again. During the summer months, we were lulled into maybe a sense of false security because we were seeing a bit of a dip. And then all of a sudden, it seems like we've spiked again. Meth has become a new drug of choice, and we're seeing, still many heroin cases. So we are still very much needed. I will be so thankful for the day that D.A.R.A isn't needed, But until then, we hope to still be here. We don't have any political or religious affiliations, but we humbly recognize the need for all the help we can get. And to that end, we always start our forums with an invocation. We welcome your rabbi, your imam, anyone who wants to be here to support us and to start with an invocation. So at this point, I'd like to have Pastor Nice come up and start us off that way.
Shall we pray? Almighty God, our loving and gracious Heavenly Father, we praise you and give you thanks for this evening and for these people. We know as we gather, you have a divine agenda for tonight. We ask that your will be done. And as you sent your Son Jesus into this world to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and to open the prison to them that are bound, may our efforts here tonight and as we go forth from this place, may those who serve on the front lines against the opioid epidemic and addiction, our teachers, our counselors, our first responders, our legal and faith community leaders, may they all be used by you to bring deliverance. It's in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit we pray these things. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And once again, for our next forums, certainly in the spring, we are looking for any member, any faith leader to join us and begin our forum. All righty. Well, starting off, I also wanted to invite Representative Malagari up to just say a few words. I have worked with Steve on another forum that I mentioned at YMCA in Lansdale, and I was very excited when, before he even took his oath of office, he reached out to me and wanted to see how we could collaborate. So I really applaud him for taking the reins here and making sure that he really addresses this issue in his jurisdiction. So thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Judge Duffy. It's great to be here in Souderton. Thank you to the Souderton Area School District for offering this wonderful, beautiful facility for this important forum. I just want to say that addiction's a really tough thing. And we all know some in our neighborhood, some in our families that may have struggled with it. We know the stories, we know the challenges, we know that there could be a stigma attached to it, and we're trying to fight that every single day, and that's why we're here today. So I just wanted to say thank you to all the providers who are here, practitioners who have made it, and also service providers who are out in the hall talking about the different services that they have available. And it's important that we all know this, and this is why we're here today, for the information. And I just want to say thank you for allowing me to thank you, Judge Duffy, on behalf of everybody involved in D.A.R.A. Thank you so much, and appreciate the opportunity to be here. So thank you.
All right. I do want to make a special thank you to a wonderful man who just brought this beautiful flag. Can you all see it up there for me tonight? Mike Cosentino, are you still here? Are you here? Oh, there he is, right there. I am so touched by this gift. Thank you so much. I will proudly display it in my courtroom lobby. Thank you. I also wanted to mention that Roger Hammond, could you raise your hand, Roger? He is our website coordinator. He is doing this all on his own, and he is always looking for input from facilities. We'll be getting word out about that. But also, we're asking for stories of hope, those wonderful recovery stories to inspire those who are struggling right now to know that there is light, there is recovery. So if you would like to get the information to him, please see him. You also can, of course, submit it to our email address. I really only thought we were going to have one forum because, like I said, D.A.R.A was only started so I could get people into treatment. So it's amazing that we're on our 9th, and I really thank everyone for making this possible. Also here, I don't want to forget, is Ray Wilson. Where are you, Ray? There's Ray is a retired lieutenant from Hatfield Township, and I must tell you that he and his son are a huge part of my inspiration for D.A.R.A. because unfortunately his son did sadly pass away from addiction and overdose. I went to the funeral and I was just overcome. And that really touched me that day to the point that I knew we really had to do something more than we were already doing. And as a district judge, because I'm the first person, the first judicial authority to see those who have been arrested, it really is such a golden opportunity. And I'm thankful to everyone who has blessed me with their resources. Okay, I think we're going to get to the speaker that I've been hoping for quite a while. He is such a great inspiration as well. Judge O'Neill was appointed by Governor Mark Schweiker in April of 2002 as the 70th judge of the Court of Montgomery County Common Pleas Court. In April, of 2006, Judge O'Neill started the Montgomery County Drug Treatment Program, and it presently has 150 participants and 606 graduates since 2007. That's amazing. And I'm sure he can tell you a lot more about his program and all that he has learned through the years, but I am incredibly grateful that he's here today to join us for this forum. Judge O'Neill.
So welcome to you all. I guess I know why I'm here. Back in 2006, I was tired of seeing the same people come in front of me over and over and over again, not because they were bad people, not because they were criminals, but they had what we then called an addiction, a brain disease. And I simply said there has to be a better way. Here we are, almost 14 years later, and I'm here addressing you, and I can ask, why are you here? Why are each and every one of you here? I do these forums, these public outreach, what we call, this is part of what we do, is to bring what we know, what my years of ministering over a drug treatment court has taught me, but why are you here? And usually you can answer that question by there are sometimes parents that are desperate. And sometimes people are just interested in what's going on in their community. And sometimes there are people themselves who are in recovery, and there's the phrase of, you got to keep paying it forward. You got to be out there to keep it yourself. So I know why I'm here. I'm the drug treatment court judge in Montgomery County, and I'm damn proud of it. Because it's become a work of passion for me, and I haven't done it for 14 years because it doesn't work. I've done it because it does work, and I like to do things that work. I like to refer to myself as an evidence-based practice judge. I don't just do things I feel. I don't allow my political lineage. I don't allow my own emotional baggage or upbringing or anything, because that's not what works. Feelings don't work in how we think we're going to deal with this major crisis. So what do we know? What is the backdrop that we're dealing with right now? So in Montgomery County alone, I get every week, every single week, a big list, big gigantic list. Lists everybody who's died of an overdose, everybody who's had an overdose and been saved by Narcan. What are we learning? There's probably been about over 700 overdoses. Some municipalities, almost 1,400, aren't even reporting the number of overdoses, although they do report the deaths. And we've had now 118 deaths just in the first 9 months of this year. That's too many. We've saved probably, another 400 or 500 is the estimate. We know we've saved well over, 315 people. So what does that tell us? That tells us that public outreach here, where they give away Narcan, that we know how to reverse the effects of an opioid overdose, and that's all that it tells us. That's all that it tells us. And that is a good way to begin. But we need to have the conversation on what this crisis, what this opioid overdose crisis is doing in this country. There's 72,000 people have died in 2017, the last years we were keeping statistics. 72,000. 2/3 of those are opioids. But this day and age, it doesn't matter, because those moralistic people known as drug dealers, they'll lace their meth, they'll lace their coke, they'll lace their tranquilizers, they'll lace their benzos with fentanyl. And you will die. So it's very difficult in a country now where we know that 21 million people have, and I'm going to introduce a new term at D.A.R.A, a substance use disorder, which if you look up in the DSM-5, which is the, how they categorize it, you won't find addiction up there, and you don't find it there anymore because they felt that the stigmatization of the word addict and the word addiction had taken on in this country a stigmatizing value until the addicts were the sons and daughters of people in suburban neighborhoods, people who are neighbors. It wasn't then until we addressed it for what it was. It's a disorder, a brain disease, a continuous relapsing of a body member. It sounds like something else, and my apologies are to those of you that are survivors of cancer, those of you that have loved ones that you've lost, to those of you that have heart disease, those who have diabetes. This disorder is no different. It is no different. But yet we as a society treat it far different. Drug addiction, a substance use disorder, as we are now using the term, is a moral failing. I don't use drugs. Why can't you stop using? So we've begun to have the conversation, and we've been forced to have the conversation because thousands and thousands of our citizens, good people, are dying from a very bad disease. So I think that's why you're here. That's why you're here. To learn, to show your support, to stand up with a single voice and say, I care. I care. I don't know what I can do. If I can come out to community forums like this and learn just a few things, or I can find a way to engage and be in support of others who suffer this disease, maybe I can help. Because this is a crisis. And I read to you some statistics, and there was a very bad man a long time ago who was a dictator and a brutal dictator, and millions died at his hands. And he said the death of one person is a tragedy. The death of millions are statistics. And when we start talking in that fashion, that's all they become, is statistics. And we lose the personal tragedies. We lose the individual cases of despair and hopelessness and loss and the chaos and the destruction of this disorder. And we need to have the conversation. So we are in the middle of one of the most profound public health crises in our history. And again, politicians are focusing on big pharma and going to get their money out of them. And where are we going to put it? And we're focusing on what can we do to solve the crisis. We are America. We solve things like this. We are the greatest democracy in the world. We will find a solution. It's going to be a lot harder than you think. So we need to have the conversation. But we've got to start with the individuals. We've got to start with the individuals. I am not a politician. I'm not in leadership roles where I'm going to take the big pharma money and what am I going to do with it? I'm not in the legislative body. We have legislators who come here, and why? Because they want to be part of the conversation. They want to find out, what is it we can do? What are the laws that we can pass? How can we begin to take the individual, those who suffer substance use disorders, and say to them, we care. We care. We recognize that this is a disorder. And the many people that have it, you look at them and you say, what happened to them? I knew them as a little kid. My children played with him. What happened? Well, we're learning. We're learning. Judge Duffy asked me, can I throw a little part in here about juveniles and substance use disorders? I can, because I see them as adults with substance use disorders. So we're focusing on what the problem is, and this is a disorder. So I'm sure at one of the forums in the future we'll have a challenge to say, well, how are we going to get rid of the word addiction? I played around with it a little bit, maybe DSUDRA, maybe with a silent D, SUDRA, Substance Use Disorder Resource Alliance. It doesn't matter what it calls, but it's time that we start destigmatizing this disorder, which is why 14 years ago I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something different. And I had no idea. I'm not a man of recovery. I am not a former addict. I'm not in recovery. I'm not a member of AA or NA. But I am an evidence-based practice judge, and as a member of the probation department who has been my partner in the 14 years that I've worked here, they always kind of laughed when I started coming up with these terms 14 years ago. And I said, what can we do? What can work with the individual? We're not going to solve the crisis. And there's some DAs that are here, and they could say, well, we're on the interdiction side, and we damn well need that because there are heartless, immoral people that are out there dealing a drug, and that anybody who would deal a drug without knowing what's in it has got to think about it. And so they're busy on the side of the drug delivery resulting in death interdiction, where they're actually going after the people that are selling drugs that they know that have fentanyl in them. And that is almost all drugs out there. So I'm figuring, what can I do? I'm a judge. I was elected to preside, to administer, to preside over trials, to try to be a fair and impartial judge and give somebody a fair trial, then under the law sentence that person. And I just kept doing it over and over and over again. And there was one common denominator. They all had a substance use disorder, which back then we called addiction. And it was intergenerational. And I said, hold it, there's got to be something else out there. Because I'm not going to do this. So I started to study. I said, what is out there? And that's where I found about drug courts, drug treatment courts. They've been around since 1989. And they started in Miami, Florida, and they started in response to the cocaine epidemic. You all remember Scarface, the movie, cool movie about that, right? All that cocaine that was down in Miami, Florida. Well, they had themselves a big cocaine substance use disorder issue down then. And there were a couple of judges down there, a very inspired district attorney, a woman by the name of Janet Reno, who went on to become Attorney General of the United States. And they said, hold on a second here. These people and the crimes they're committing, the possession of the drugs, the stealing of money from other people in stores to get the money to buy the drugs because now their disorder demands that they use the drug over and over and over without an ability to stop. What if we treated those individuals? What if we forced them into long-term treatment? And there's your key. Long-term treatment. And what vehicle would we provide? Well, they're coming into a justice system that for too long was locking up the symptoms of a substance use disorder. And I say symptoms, and people are scratching their head. So if I'm someone with a substance use disorder and I cannot control my use, but I don't have any money, what am I going to do? I am going to steal from you. I am going to steal from stores. I am going to burglarize houses, and I'm going to break into your car. And what would we do in response? We'd lock them up, put them in jail. And we'd say, all right, we'll teach you now. You're going to go to jail, and you'll learn, because that's the way I am. I'm a NORP, a normal, ordinary, responsible person, right? Sorry for that, but that's just how that acronym works out. And normal, ordinary, responsible people, NORPs, they don't either commit the crime, but if they do, they self-correct. They're like, oh my God, what did I do? I'm going to shame the embarrassment. That doesn't work in a substance use disordered brain. So what do? Put them in jail. So it's almost like if we had a whole population that could not ride a bicycle. But I can ride a bicycle. I'm a judge, right? I could sit up there and say, you know what? I'll show you how to ride a bicycle. And I'll go, what do you mean? Get up. Do it again. All right, you know what? Go to jail. Go spend a week in jail. And when you get out, you'll learn to ride a bicycle. Would we do that? Would we do that? Would we take someone that had a heart disease and they didn't listen to a damn thing their doctor said, a heart disease, a relapsing disorder of a body member, that if you don't put it under control, it'll kill you. Sound familiar? Take somebody with a heart disease, say, you know what, stop doing what you're doing in terms of what you're eating and your lifestyle and your health. You know what? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. You don't lose 50 pounds, you don't change your diet, I'm putting you in jail. Would we do that as a society? No, we wouldn't. Do we do it with substance use disorders? Absolutely we do. Absolutely we do. We don't treat it like a disorder. We don't treat it like a disease. So that's what led me into drug courts. I started looking around. I found out, wow, what was that thing they were doing in Miami? It looks like it's working. And why is it working? I'll give you the components of drug treatment court, and they're not important because you're all sitting here and you're wondering, at the end of this talk, you're going to say, how do I get into, or how do I get my kid into a drug treatment court? And far too many of these public forums, I've had to say, I guess you're going to have to get him or her arrested for the jewelry they stole, for the checks that they wrote, the reasons why you can't have them in your house anymore. Because the symptoms of their disorder has destroyed families. But the criminal justice system and their approach at locking away the symptoms simply is not working, because what happens when we lock them up, they get worse, and that's statistically we know it. So drug courts have grown over those 30 years. And they have grown into, and I'll use a legal term, beyond a reasonable doubt. And the reason I can say that is it's the most studied intervention in the criminal justice system ever. And the conclusion, after 30 years, it is absolutely by far the most successful intervention ever tried with substance use disorders in the criminal justice system. Why? Evidence-based practices, things that work. Things that you could say, hold it, I've heard about rehab, I've heard about outpatient treatment, I've heard about inpatient treatment, I've heard about, medication-assisted treatment, Suboxone, I've heard about them all. But who's ever put them together to the place where we can make you do every one of them? We build the box, and we force you into long-term change. Long-term recovery, all facets of it. And that's probably the key. So I studied it, I went to drug courts around, I watched how it worked, and I said, hold on, I want to be part of that. I like the way that judge is talking to that individual. I like that judge is motivationally interviewing that individual as opposed to telling that individual what he's going to do to him if he doesn't change. So I started treatment court back in 2006. We had about 6 people. I was fortunate enough in this county because I was the county solicitor. I had a few friends in town and in politics, and they became county commissioners, and I went to them on a whim, and I said, look, I got an idea of what can work. Can you give me some money? because I got to have money to treat these people if I say that I'm going to keep them in long-term treatment. And I got to have the resources to test these people because they got to be held accountable. And I got to have the resources to help get to the probation department so they can supervise these people as specialists. And they said, okay. They said, all right. I said, oh, now what the hell am I going to do? Now I got to prove myself here. I got to see if it really does work. And I can tell you 14 years later, I'm as passionate about it now as I was the day I started it. I like to be part of a program that gives people a chance, people to change their lives. How does it work? You come here, you want a formula, you say, these people, they come in. I tell them when they come in, I'll tell you all the same things. Substance use disorders do not form over 21, 28, or 90-day periods. Why do I pick those dates? Because that's where the managed care in this country believe that if we call it rehab, you're going to get better. And we'll put you in rehab for that short period of time, and we'll have absolutely no plan for you there afterwards. And you will stop going to treatment, because who the hell wants to go to treatment to talk about themselves? I'll be okay. I came out of rehab. So I tell family members and employers, that's their one reach, because they are the the world heavyweight champion manipulators. That's what they do. They're cognitive acrobats. They have to put versions of themselves out to you so that they can continue. Not because they're bad people, that's what their disease demands. So they'll say, rehab, I got to go to rehab. Rehab alone doesn't work. So what do? We now learn that treatment, long-term treatment, our program lasts anywhere between 18 and 24 months. Imagine if you could keep somebody in treatment, in a recovery lifestyle, for that long a period of time. Guess what? They are going to be able to control their disorder. It is a chronic relapsing disorder that they'll have the rest of their life. But if they can control it, then they're in recovery. So if you picked up the symptomology of people that are in active drug addiction, in active substance use disorder, they are going to take your things. They're going to commit the crimes, and the crimes are the symptom. But if they are in long-term recovery, the symptom of that is sobriety. And if they're sober, then they're not going to be committing the crimes. And that's what we've learned. So what do? We put them into treatment from day one, and they stay into treatment until the end of the program. We hold them accountable. Again, these probation officers that work there, they're specialists. They got to learn, what is a substance use disorder? What are the evidence-based practices that work? So every one of these participants, every single day, they make a phone call. They got to call, and if their color's called, their number's called, they've got to go and give a urine. Random and frequent. Not mom or dad or some employer saying, all right, next Tuesday, I'm going to test you. They smile because they're heavyweight champion prevaricators. They'll lie. I didn't use. I swear to God. But all right, go ahead, test me next Tuesday. Random and frequent testing. Peer support, AA, NA, whatever it takes. Get them in there and they have to go. They've got to get a job. And then the uniqueness of drug court. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it. I'm sure there's always, anywhere I talk, somewhere there's a graduate here. Sometimes there's a participant. Sometimes there's parents that children have gone through it. If you've ever watched it, it's not court as you know it. It's recovery meets reality television. And it works. So they have to come to court once a week. I've got a program that we started recently called a TOP program, Targeted Opioid Phase, where we're trying to deal with a crisis that we're getting heroin use disordered people out of jail within 2 weeks. And they're in treatment, and they come to court every day. And what do they do when they're in court? You sit up there in your robes, judge, and you lecture them and tell them to do this and that. Nope, I listen. I listen. I try to frame their recovery at every stage of where it is. And guess what? They change. They see that they can control their substance use disorder. And it's a pretty amazing process to watch. I implore all of you to come watch Drug Court someday. It runs Wednesday nights, 5 o'clock it starts, goes to about 7:30. Friday afternoons. Graduations every Wednesday. You want to have clapping court where we take people and really, I've done 118 graduates for 610 graduates that we've had. And they're pretty special events because you know why? I call these people heroes. Now you're going, all right, this judge is getting a little loopy. Heroes are firefighters and first responders. They are the heroes in our community. Oh yeah? What do they go into burning buildings and they rescue people from cars? How about going into the burning chaos and wreckage of your own life and saving it? People love to say, no, Judge, you saved my life. I have a letter here from a mother, and I get those letters, and they're usually 3 or 4 years after the child is completed, talking about how drug court saved their life, and that simply is not true. I simply built the frame to put the person in. I built the box to keep them in. Doing the hardest thing in the world, change is so incredibly hard, to allow them to become different people. We have a podium that we use in drug court. We have a mirror that we use in drug court. In the mirror, anybody who comes into drug court, we ask, who are you? And you imagine the answers for people that are in treatment, just coming in, they're coming out of jail. They've been locked up 2-3 months. They're coming in, who am I? And they go, stupid question, Judge. I'm an addict, mother, father, criminal. They don't have an answer. They don't have an answer. And I say, that's okay. Because it's going to be important about who you become. And if you've ever sat through a drug court graduation, if you've ever watched it, it's one of the most inspiring things because they deserve to have people hear their story of redemption, their transformation. They deserve to have a court say to them, you know what, we're here to help. We're not here to stigmatize. We're not here to judge. We're here to help. It's a novel way to work. So I did say that I would try to touch on what about the kids? What about the juveniles? Here's what I can tell you, and it's not a good story, but I can tell you that if you're a parent of someone who is at that age between 10 and 16, 17, now is a critical time. We like to ignore that. We don't talk about, marijuana is not a gateway drug, alcohol's all around. Well, that's a myth because they are both gateway drugs and it doesn't matter whether they're legal. It just doesn't matter. But they're gateway drugs to the individual. So what have I learned over 15 years? Who is in the treatment court? It's a pretty uniform story, and you got to think about it this way. I'm 10. My parents fight all the time. I'm getting abused by my uncle. My parents divorce. My father smacked me around. Both my parents use. I'm scared. I'm confused. I don't feel enough. But wait, I went to school today and somebody said, you know what? We're going over to Jim's house and we're going to drink. Jim's father's got beer all over the place. Or we got some marijuana, let's go smoke it. 10, 11, and they do. And what do they feel? Well, they think they feel cool and better. But what they really do is they feel less sad in that moment. And that's the whole key to this brain disorder thing. And again, I'm not a scientist. I'm not, a neuroscientist. I'm going to tell you, I'm not an addiction specialist. But every single story is the same. And why do substance use disorders take hold? Because it's a coping mechanism. So when all that confusion, chaos is going on in my life, and I have no control, but I take a drug, got control over that. And guess what? I look around. Everybody looks like me. And everybody has the same issues. And everybody's doing the same thing. And then we're 15 and somebody introduces opioid pills. Where do we get the opioid pills? Big Pharma, the enemy in the room, right? But they're in every house. Be bought on every street corner. They sure did. They play a huge part of it. But if you take someone with the high risk for a substance use disorder and you put it out there, you flood the entire community with it, then that's how it takes hold. So when we start to tell the stories of those tragedies of this disease, they all have common roots. So you might say, what can I do as a parent? Well, you started right here. You've started if you're a parent. If you're someone with a substance use disorder that's currently in recovery, you know what I'm talking about because I'm talking your language. There's hope. And it's long-term recovery. And we as communities have to demand it. We have to demand it of our legislators. We have to demand it of our politicians, our executives, the ones who enforce the law. We have to demand it of everyone. Because we're a community that can solve these problems. But it's going to take a lot. We aren't built for it. We aren't built for it because it's not a problem that anybody wants to talk about. Except for you. You're having the conversation tonight. So there is hope. There is hope. I believe strongly. And I will continue to do my small part. And sadly enough, it is a small part. Because when you judge it, I can tell you about our graduates when they complete our program. If we measure those that do nothing, we know that they come back into the criminal justice system about 75% of the time. Our statistics are currently about 28%. So it works. Everybody knows it works. So we have to find a way, and I don't know how it's going to happen, and if I ever do it, I'll probably feel that I can die at peace, of how you translate what we know works. Because a criminal justice system shouldn't be the one that are bringing the most effective interventions. That is keeping people in long-term treatment into the community. You shouldn't have to say, do I really have to get my kid arrested to be able to get into your program so I can get his life saved? So I do my graduation speech. I always talk about opportunity. You all out in the community, if you're here, there is always an opportunity to get someone into treatment. And if you leave here with one thing, that's it. How can you help somebody else with the opportunity? Because this is an equal opportunity killer. It doesn't care your race, your creed, your economic wealth. It's deadly. And if you're here, you're part of the conversation. And opportunities don't last forever. Because we are living in a world where that tragedy, that personal tragedy, can come to each and every one of you. So that's why I'm here. Because part of being a treatment court judge is to do public outreach, to tell those that are out there what does work. And I'll keep doing it until I can't do it anymore. Because it gives me meaning, even on a small scale. I feel when I go home, I go to sleep at night, I said I did the best I could. I brought the best I had to people in need. And I hope that represents what the court system is about. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, I'll stick around.
Awesome. I know I speak for everyone in D.A.R.A. to say how honored we truly are that you were here, Judge O'Neill. I really do admire your work. I try to do in a small way what you're doing because I really do consider you a hero to me, without getting mushy. Sorry. finally, I know we're running short on time, but we have a very important presentation from a pharmacist, Rob Frankil, who is here. He is the owner and operator of Sellersville Pharmacy. Actually, he's currently working also with Penn Foundation. He's the current president of the Bucksmont Pharmacists Association. We're really glad to have him here tonight. Just give you a few words, okay? Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. I won't be long. I know it's late. And I'm not checking my iPhone for scores or Facebook. I got my notes on this. And it's an Eagles phone, so go Birds. Okay, so I've been working in community pharmacy all my life, my professional life, for over 30 years. Most recently as the owner-operator of Sellersville Pharmacy and of our pharmacy on campus at Penn Foundation. So over the course of the last 30 years plus, I've filled prescriptions for all the stuff that's been talked about tonight, including, fast forward to today, Suboxone, the medicines that treat the drugs that treat the addiction illness that all these bad drugs cost. And I know there's been a lot of stats thrown out there tonight, but I'm going to throw just a couple more out at you. In the entire Vietnam War, we lost about 58,000 American soldiers. Judge O'Neill mentioned earlier that we lost over 70,000 people in 2017 from drug overdoses in 1 year. And that number has been about the same, if not growing a little bit, the last couple of years. So those are just alarming numbers. Pennsylvania, I think, is in the top 5. I think our numbers are about 7,000 deaths per year from drug overdoses. But what I'm going to talk about tonight, not too long, is the role of pharmacy and the perspective of a pharmacist. As was mentioned, a lot of addiction to heroin starts with prescription drugs. Those prescription drugs come from pharmacies. So the prescriptions that we fill get diverted into the wrong hands, and those drugs fuel the addiction of the people that have problems. This is a simple little lockable case. If you or anyone you know takes prescription drugs that are dangerous, whether they're painkillers or not, get one of these. It probably costs less than one of your copays, and keep your drugs locked up, because prescription drugs are the starting point for a lot of addictions. And just another stat I want to throw out at you. The United States represents about 4% of the world population, yet we consume over 90% of prescription opioids in the world. That doesn't mean we're in a lot more pain than people in another country. That just means our society is trained to take a pill to cure pain. No one ever died of pain, but we want to take a pill to make the pain go away instead of going through the hard part, rehab, therapy, that sort of thing. Luckily, pharmacy has now got a lot of tools in our toolbox to help these problems. So I want to talk about that a little bit. We have what's called the Prescription Drug Monitoring Program, the PDMP. Now what that is every prescription in the let's talk about Pennsylvania. Every prescription in Pennsylvania that's filled for a controlled substance, whether it's oxycodone, Xanax, Percocet, any of those, must get reported into a database. And that database is shared between all pharmacists, all doctors, and law enforcement. And anyone can access that database, doctors, pharmacists, and law enforcement, if they have a suspicion that a prescription is being written or filled by someone who is taking advantage of the system, doctor shopping, pharmacy shopping. Also, the prescription drug, the PDMP, has also been used as a tool to shut down a lot of bad docs. So a lot of these pill mills have been shut down, in part because of the data that the PDMP has created. There was a law passed last year that becomes effective probably in about 10 days, believe it or not, requiring that all prescriptions written for controlled substances in Pennsylvania be electronically prescribed, e-scripts. Now that's a much more secure system than writing a prescription on a piece of paper, which can be forged or copied or duplicated. So we're getting better. We have more things to address this opioid problem and prescription drugs being diverted. Also, there have been prescribing and dispensing guidelines, which have been adopted by the medical societies and pharmacy societies. What that kind of means is it's a guideline where your initial opioid prescriptions can only be 5 days supply. So dentists used to write for 60 Vicodin if you had a tooth taken out. They're not doing that anymore. They're only prescribing 10 or 15 to get you through the weekend, and that's about it. Also, Judge O'Neill mentioned that we are more aware that addiction is a disease. It is not a lifestyle choice. I'm going to give my little scenario, which was similar to his that he mentioned earlier tonight, that let's say a diabetic doesn't take their medicine and keeps eating ice cream, and they show up at the doctor's office with a blood sugar of 600 when it's supposed to be 120. Well, that diabetic is not going to be kicked out of the doctor's practice. The doctor's going to work with that diabetic a little better. That's what should be happening with people with addiction. If they show up at a doctor's office or at drug court with the dirty urine, we're not going to kick him out of the program. We're going to work with that person to treat this disease of addiction a little better. Remember, it's not a lifestyle choice, it's a disease that needs to be treated. Also, another piece of good news, all the Medicaid plans in Pennsylvania, thanks to Governor Wolf's initiatives, are mandated to give better coverage for addiction treatment. Medication-assisted treatment, that sort of thing, Suboxone, to help people, use that drug instead of heroin. Medicaid plans are mandated to cover those drugs. I also want to talk about Narcan and naloxone a little bit and access to it. Now, there are Narcan distribution programs all over the state from time to time where people can get a box of Narcan, hang on to it, God forbid you have to use it, at least you have it, and you can be in a position to save someone's life. So all these programs are out there. But there's also something called a standing order that the Physician General of Pennsylvania wrote. Now what that means is anyone can get Narcan by walking into any pharmacy at any time, and just by walking up to the counter of the pharmacist and saying, I'd like some Narcan. You do not need to get a prescription from your doctor. You can just walk into the pharmacy, ask for it, and you will get it. That is what the standing order is. Every pharmacy is familiar with this, and okay, now we talk about the cost, because pharmacies don't get Narcan for free. We have to pay for it. Now I have to get it to you at a low cost or no cost. The good news is, every Medicaid plan in Pennsylvania covers 1 box for 30 days per patient. Also, commercial plans like IBC and Aetna have also chimed in. They will cover 1 box per person per month at 0 copay. So if you want Narcan for yourselves, or if you want to get it and can't make one of these distribution programs, you want to give it to someone else you might know is living in this world and might be in the company with someone, God forbid, who has a problem, just walk into your pharmacy, ask for Narcan, show them your insurance card, chances are it's covered at 0 copay. If your pharmacy that you go to is not familiar with this program, go to Sellersville. Go to either the pharmacy on Main Street or the pharmacy at Penn Foundation, and we will take care of you. I'll make sure you get a box of Narcan at no charge. I promised I'd keep it short and sweet, and I am. I'll stick around for some questions, but there's one thing I wanted to also add that was not on my notes here, and this is a real story, okay? I did not know Judge O'Neill was going to be here until I walked in tonight. And I will tell you that my daughter graduated from Judge O'Neill's program in drug court. And I have a happy, healthy daughter and a happy, healthy 4-year-old grandson because Judge O'Neill built a great program that helped my daughter save her life with the help of you and your people. So I want to thank you. I didn't know I'd see it tonight. Thank you. I'll stick around for questions. I know it's late, so. And they still got a baseball game on tonight in Washington. So.
Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I also want to do a shout out to the District Attorney's Office for their take-back car tonight. I'm so proud to have the DA's office, Adult Probation and Parole, as part of D.A.R.A. We are a really comprehensive group. We do have the distribution of naloxone. Please go out to the Renew Family Services table out there for that. I want to thank especially Donna Purrs from the Indian Valley Character Counts Coalition. Here she is. She's a great lady. She's done so much work for this event today. I also want to say one of my dearest friends, Margie Waters, is here. If anyone is a parent of both someone who is in recovery, as well as, sadly, thanks to the unfortunate passing of our staff, she knows both sides of this. Her son, both children have been in my court. Her son is thriving, and unfortunately we lost Steph. But while that was one of the worst things I've experienced as a judge, I can't even imagine the pain. So Ray Wilson and Margie Waters are really great inspirations to me, and they also are people I rely on to help me understand this. We are going to be available to answer all your questions. If you have any, we'll be out front. Please know that there is hope. If you leave here with any message, please know there's hope. Thank you so much, Judge O'Neill, for being here. I really do appreciate it. Thank you all.